Today, the Biden administration is restricting what Border Patrol agents are allowed to tell the media amid the border crisis. Well, it's not a crisis, depending on who you're talking to, but it's a crisis. Also, an update in the Andrew Cuomo scandal. We've got a lot coming up today, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Today, we bring you a token Irishman, John Doyle.
Here to offer the Irish perspective.
Yes, political commentator John Doyle. We were like, oh, wait, crap, you're right. We did have an Irishman on St. Patrick's Day. How appropriate. Also joined by Jason Buttrell, chief researcher of the Glenn Beck program, who is, I don't know what your heritage is.
You're wearing the right color, though.
Apparently I'm not. John told me I'm just culturally appropriating.
That's not what I said. You can culturally appropriate all you want because Irish people don't care. The problem is that you're like a 20-year-old college girl who's like, I'm going to wear green and be festive today. Whereas I, the actual Irishman, am wearing an Aran wool sweater. The best wool in the world comes from the Aran Islands, where I visited, 3 summers ago. So like, this is like actually what Irish people would wear. And you're just like, green. That's Irish culture, green.
Yeah, I'm like, how can I get enough green? I've got the green dress, but I need the green eyeshadow to match it. And I also have green on my earrings.
We're not drinking today?
I'm celebrating. I know.
What?
I know. I should have. Maybe during the break we can go. We need something Irish, which would be whiskey. So I don't know if there's whiskey anywhere.
Where's Chad when you need him?
Yeah, anywhere in the building. All right, so headlines of the day. Again, I feel like a broken record. We've talked about the border crisis again. It's not a crisis, depending on who you're talking to, but it's a crisis when it's 729% over capacity in some of these migrant facilities. But we've talked about this at great lengths every day, and I get so tired of talking about it. But it's all that's freaking going on, number one. And number two, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So the latest is the Biden administration is now reportedly restricting what Border Patrol agents are allowed to share with members of the media. Of course, this is the very, very transparent Biden-Harris administration that is restricting these Border Patrol members to tell the media certain things. They apparently, this is 4 current and 2 former Customs and Border Protection officials who shared this news, and they said that they have passed it down verbally. Of course, it's not in an official memo that would be able to be traced back, and they are viewed as an unofficial, quote, gag order within the agency. So they said that they needed to deny all media requests for ride-alongs with agents, and they need to send all information queries, even from local media, to the press office in Washington for approval. And those responsible for cultivating data about the number of migrants in custody have been reminded not to share the information with anyone to prevent leaks. Now, it's interesting because as I just mentioned earlier, John, this is not a crisis. So if it was not a crisis, I don't see why we need to clamp down on the evidence that's being, given to the media.
Yeah.
But also, I thought we were going to get transparency here.
Well, when they say media, who are they talking? Like Laura Ingraham? Like MSNBC is going to run defense for them. CNN. Like who's actually going to want to report on that information? Like us, and then like maybe Fox News, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're really clamping down on it, aren't they?
I mean, I will say, who is it? The New York Times has at least surprised me in reporting any of this. I mean, I think that they're still trying to be favorable to Joe Biden, but I've been surprised at like some of the mainstream media, not the TV outlets, but some of the mainstream media, old-timey newspaper type outlets have surprised me on this.
Yeah, well, just imagine, I hate doing it this way, but just imagine what would have happened if this would have been going on during the Trump administration, when AOC was going down to these facilities and crying.
You mean the concentration camps?
The concentration camps, excuse me. When she was going, or internment camps, whatever. But when she was going down, dressed in all white and crying and doing all that stuff, what would have happened?
At the parking lot?
It's just crying at the parking lot with a fence. What would have happened if she would have walked up to that fence and they wouldn't have let her beyond or into the door? She would have staged this huge fiasco, to get more attention. So we know that this was all about attention. Is it bad that there's kids and there's people in these facilities? Yeah, it is bad. It's not Trump's fault, obviously not. Obama was the deporter in chief, for crying out loud.
Right.
People forget that he was called that.
Yeah.
He built the damn cages, for crying out loud. We trace this back all the way to Janet Reno and Bill Clinton, really, when a lot of this started. Again, you never hear these things. Bad border policy has compounded over the years, and this is where we're at right now. But the problem is on the left, when they talk about it, they're the morality police here.
Right.
So they have every good intention when it comes to what's going on right now. It's just when a Republican is in office, they have the bad intention. I actually saw an article in The Hill, I think today, where they were talking about the child families being separated thing. And they actually said that families were being separated under the Trump administration as an incentive tactic so that people wouldn't cross the border. I could not believe that. I mean, again, this is a policy from back during Janet Reno in the Clinton era.
Wow, that's incredible.
But I think now is, I think outlets like the New York Times kind of feel compelled to talk about this. They've talked about this so much, they know that we're going to throw it in their face.
Yes, and they've kind of radicalized themselves for the last 4 years, I feel like.
Yeah, how are you going to look now?
Right, exactly.
But now, and you're already seeing this, I think from Psaki who actually said this. Am I saying that right? Is
I
it
don't
Psaki
know.
or Psaki?
No, it's not. The P is silent.
Okay, so this is not an opossum type situation. This is got it. I think that what's ridiculous is, and I think I said this last week on your show, is anytime someone on the left does some of these things, one of these infractions, whether it's a Me Too infraction, whether now it's a border and immigrant infraction, that they're, as Sarah Silverman said, is that it's just assumed that people on the left don't really mean bad intent when they do it.
Right.
It's only when you're on the right that there's bad intent, or there's some kind of evil Dr. Evil intention behind it.
Yeah.
And it also is another good example of how the left has really won this culture war. It's absolutely insane. We both can do the same things, right? But they're virtuous. We're evil for some reason.
What are your thoughts, John?
It's interesting because, like you said, with them winning the culture war, it's because they control all of the media. And so even though we can say it's not exactly like an Orwellian situation because it's not exactly the state that's controlling the flow of information, it's these privatized corporations, but still they just act as an extension of that state with the same narratives. And so we can do something and we're Hitler, but then they can do it and it's actually, well, they're not cages, they're, what was the new word?
First they said containers, but now it's reception centers.
Exactly, just reception centers because they have the power and they can control things. And so as conservatives, we have no power, and so all we can do is just point the finger and say, well, you're not following the standards that you get to set because you get to set the standards and we don't, but you're not following them, so you're a hypocrite. It's like they're not bad because they're immoral or because they want to take rights away. They're just bad because they're hypocrites, which is a really impotent position for us to be in because we don't even have the power to set the standards, so all we left to do is just react to them.
Yeah.
Right.
So what is the solution then? Because, and I hate to, it's like, please solve all of the world's problems single-handedly. But, you look at it and it's like, none of this has gotten us anywhere. Look at the state of affairs. We've got Democrats controlling everything in Washington. And what do you do? Because I know that a lot of people feel like the angel on their shoulder is saying, okay, we still need to be the morally superior ones no matter what. We can't get down in the mud with them. And then you've got the devil on your shoulder going, yeah, but that's how they've gotten as far as they have, and you have to fight fire with fire, which I used to be, like, yeah, we don't want to do what they do. And now I'm like, I don't see another way around it.
Well, that's the thing, is like to have that angel and devil on your shoulder. I think that being pacified would actually be more of like the devil's position. Like to be moral and to know that you are correct requires that you assert that. A lot of times the right, I think largely because of libertarianism, has sort of adopted this policy of like, well, there's, it's not my position to say what's right or wrong, and so we can kind of just have this moral vacuum open. But the left doesn't agree to that. They don't want to leave that vacuum open. They're like, oh, you're not going to do anything? Okay, we will. And then they assert themselves, and conservatives are like, no, wait a minute, we weren't going to, but then it's like we don't even have a seat at the table anymore.
Well, and then we're playing defense instead of playing offense. We're busy trying to explain to people that we're not racist, we're not xenophobic.
We're on the back foot for whether there are two genders now, and people still think that we can like agree to these principles. It's like your children are going to public school and coming home like, mommy, I think I might be a boy, and you're just like, oh man, those crazy liberals. And it's like, then the children will reject you and reject the family's faith, and like they'll just divorce themselves completely from the family. And we need to seriously change. And I try to communicate this to my audience often, but a lot of them are still in that like psychology of like the last 50 years, and they think that like, oh, we just got to do it this time, but do it right. And it's like, no, we're losing for those reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I saw a video of yours of
many such cases.
And it really struck home, but it kind of goes into this as we got to stop. I think we got to get away from who's morally right and who's morally wrong. And conservatives, and this is all you, if I remember correctly, but conservatives we've kind of been built up on, we're the moral superior,
Right, and how far has that gotten us lately?
Well, right. Well, I think Democrats essentially just kind of turned it around against us. Now they're like, no, they're the morally, superior because they care about immigrants. They say that as if we don't,
right?
Which is ridiculous. But in the way that they've won this now, everyone pretty much, or the majority of the country, I think, just kind of believes that. Yeah. It's morally superior just to have these amnesty programs, to not care about border security, to pretty much with your actions and your policies to invite people across the border, and you cause the situation that's going on right now. Somehow, 75% of the country thinks that's the way to go, which is absolutely insane. I think I said it on this show that what we were going to have is there's a really very real thing called the people were predicting was the Biden effect. The Biden effect of moving away from Trump's border and immigration policies was going to cause all these people to come down. We were fully expecting it, and sure enough, towards the end of 2020, they were already starting to do that. I mean, we've got to be able now to, I think, stay on the foot of like, what can we do to show people that, look, their morality is bullcrap.
Yeah.
It's based on a lie. And really pretty much every liberal policy, they don't give a crap about the poor.
No.
They don't give a crap about immigrants. They gain on whatever that helps them win the moral argument of that time to gain voters. That is it, and that is all. Like I said, Obama, the deporter in chief, Biden was going to become the same thing. He was going to do the exact same thing that Trump was doing. He's in all these problems. He was going to put people in cages, everything. We cannot let them say, no, because we're Democrats, we have good intentions for it. It's bullcrap.
So sometimes I wonder if they will eventually do it to themselves because, you're seeing, I alluded to it earlier, that they're radicalizing a lot of these people through their rhetoric. For the last 4 years, 5 years, we've heard all of these things about how you're xenophobic if you want to, vet someone before you let them into our country. You're a racist if you don't believe in Black Lives Matter. You're doing all of these things, and they have been radicalizing slowly these people. And now all of a sudden they're doing the same things. Joe Biden is putting kids in containers. You've got Joe Biden not responding to Black Lives Matter, who sends a letter to him saying, hey, we're ready to work with you. You need to work with us. And he's not even responding. And so I'm wondering, are these people ever going to have a point where they realize, they have a light bulb moment, we were just used.
Okay.
Oh crap, we were just used as pawns in this entire thing.
Sorry to filibuster this, John, but
my gosh, here we go.
This is a very good point, because this is the problem with the left playing footsie with the far left. And I think conservatives can take a very good lesson from this as well. Unless you're completely ideologically, in tune with some of the people that start to come and support you, turn your back on them.
Yeah.
They've gone in with Marxist BLM. Well, they're Marxists.
Right.
They've gone in with the far left, the far left. They're all kind of in lockstep. What's going to happen when they see that nothing has changed under Biden? What's going to happen?
They're going to get mad.
And radicalized.
Yeah.
They're going to gain in numbers, and eventually they'll start winning elections. This is very, very dangerous. If you play footsie with the radical ends of the political spectrum, if they give in to you and go onto your side because it gives you an opportunity where you think change is going to happen, you're going to be very upset when that change doesn't happen. I think the entire country is kind of in that state right now. We don't like government. Nobody on both sides. We hate government because nothing ever happens. We want something. They tell us during elections that they're going to do them, and they never do it.
Yeah.
People get radicalized.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's still riots going on in the Pacific Northwest. We just talked about that on Elijah's show. They're trying to burn down federal buildings because who knows why.
Right.
But you can just never satisfy these people because they don't exist in these movements to okay, finish the job, let's go home. Their entire purpose, their raison d'etre, so to speak, is literally to try and fight off these fascists and these neoliberals or whatever because they're insecure and they are spiritually ill, and so they have no greater purpose than that because they grew up like binge reading The Hunger Games and Harry Potter. And so they're like, I'm Dumbledore's army. It's like, no, you're not. That's what they think they're doing. They're LARPing. They're live action role playing when they go out there. And you can tell by their eyes too. Like if you looked in the eyes of like a young man storming Normandy or something, or Hamburger Hill, like you'll see like this grit and this passion. They just look totally like, they're not really sure why they're there, but
they look dead inside.
Yeah, no, they're like
honestly.
all, and there's actually, you notice how you see their mug shots. They're all very less than model-like people, and then they all have dyed hair too.
They all look like they haven't showered in like a month.
Well, that's the thing. There's a phenomenon in biology called aposematism, which is where insects and certain reptiles will cast and convey bright colors, basically to let predators know that they're not worth messing with. There was a biologist who published a paper arguing that's the same thing that we see with these people, why all of the spiritually ill and mentally ill people have those like colored hair. And I understand your eyeshadow like is going up, but
oh my gosh. Well, thanks for being on the program, John.
Just like last time. First and last appearance. It's like the same thing, like almost a way of like subconsciously conveying like I'm not worth messing with, like I'm just like I'm messed up, yeah.
Well, I learned something new about myself today. Thank you for that, Dr. John Doyle. We've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Home Title Lock. If you have not heard yet about home title theft, you better listen up because you don't want it to happen to you, all right? Especially during times of COVID where cybercrime is on the rise. It's up 75% right now. And cybercrime you really need to make sure you know about and have secured is home title theft. So cyber criminals, both foreign and domestic, they are now after our homes. It's way easier than you would think it is because all of our home's title documents are kept online. So the cyber thief goes on, finds your home title, and forges your signature on a quitclaim deed. And then they can say, hey, this person sold their home to me. At which point they take out loans on your home. They can totally demolish your entire retirement nest egg, leave you in debt, and you're not going to know that any of it happens until it's too late. Now, you may be thinking, well, my insurance program probably covers this, or like my identity theft program covers it. No, those programs do not cover it. That's why you need to protect your home with Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock will make sure that they shut it down anytime they detect someone tampering with your home's title. You need to go to HometitleLock.com, register your address to see if you are already a victim. Then you need to use code RADIO to receive 30 free days of protection. Again, don't know why that's the code. Realize this is not a radio program, but just use the code, okay? Especially if you find out that you already have been a victim, because you're going to need it. It is HometitleLock.com. That is HometitleLock.com. Back in a minute. So just to kind of wrap up this border topic for today, Joe Biden was in the news recently. I think he was on with George Stephanopoulos, and he was talking about the border crisis and what is taking place there. Of course, you know, we're going to see him make the ridiculous claims. Well, we're not doing what Trump did. Well, thank goodness the cages are closed. We're not holding children in cells and stuff like Trump did. These are like obviously bubbles, okay? They're containers. They're more like hamster wheels. Here is, let's watch really quickly Joe Biden saying we're not doing what Trump did. Watch.
What do you do with an unaccompanied child that comes to the border? Do you repeat what Trump did? Do you repeat what Trump did? Take them from their mothers, move them away, hold them in cells, etc.? We're not doing that.
Hold on. If they were unaccompanied minors, which Joe Biden just said that they were, how do you take them then from their mothers if they're unaccompanied? I'm trying to understand how that, if they're unaccompanied, I don't think they're showing up with their mothers, so I don't think you're able to. And
that's always been the standard. That's not a Trump standard.
Right. But let me really quickly, let me get your thoughts on this, gentlemen. George Stephanopoulos was asking Joe Biden, could you like maybe tell these people don't come? Because we've had this argument on the show many times. You know, you think about what is the humane and moral thing to do, and we hear Jen Psaki, constantly reference that, well, we're doing the humane and moral thing, unlike our predecessor. But you look at this and you're like, well, the moral thing to do would be to make sure that these countries know to stop sending their people, stop making the dangerous journey. If it is so dangerous to make their journey here, tell them not to come. Here's what Joe Biden has to say about that.
A lot of the migrants coming in saying they're coming in because you promised to make things better. It seems to be getting worse by the day. Was it a mistake not to anticipate this surge?
Well, first of all, there was a surge the last 2 years and 19 and 20, there was a surge as well.
This one might be worse.
No, well, it could be, but here's the deal. We're sending back people to, first of all, the idea that Joe Biden said come, because I heard the other day that they're coming because they know I'm a nice guy and I won't do
They're
what Trump
saying
did.
this.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. They're not.
Do you have to say quite clearly, don't come?
Settled.
Yes, I can say quite clearly, don't come. And what we're in the process of getting set up, don't leave your town or city or community.
Solid plan.
I
Usually
mean,
works.
that sounded really, really convincing.
We're gonna here's the deal our way into the implosion of our country.
Yeah. Here's the deal. No, that didn't happen. That's not happening. Done. All right, we're moving on, I guess, because Joe Biden said, here's the deal. So he really meant it.
That usually works. I mean, bank robbers, you can say, just stay home tonight, have a beer, watch The Simpsons. You know,
They're
just
coming
don't do
because they
it.
think I'm a nice guy.
Simpsons, you are old.
So I don't think the average American is buying what Joe Biden is selling right now. Gentlemen, do you, really quickly before we move on?
I don't think the average American really cares. I mean, I'm sure they care about
Sad.
well, I think that people, oftentimes on the right, we sort of have this like, why don't they just want to do all the research that we do? And it's like the average American just kind of wants to like go to work and come home, open up a six-pack, watch The Simpsons. Like
They're old,
They sort of
like
have
Jason.
this, yeah.
I'm in South Park. I'm in South Park.
They sort of have this like naive but like understandable inclination to just want to trust what the screen people are telling them and that it's true. But unfortunately it's not, and it's just serving as an extension of like the Biden regime, so to speak. So yeah, it's disheartening to see.
People care if it serves their purpose. That's kind of where we're at right now. So, you know, the left really cared, 4 years ago because it served their purpose. And they could use it to show how great they were.
Yeah, on Facebook.com, it's just like everyone really needed to know, like people putting the signs up in my neighborhood that say, what was it? Just like, this house believes that Black Lives Matter. Just like let's knock on the door. I think it's really brave of you to say you don't like lynching. That was like very inspirational. I didn't know that about you.
It was then 2020, right? In 2020, it is very stunning and brave to come out like that.
Yeah, stunning and brave.
Right, most people, man, you got to really worry about them. All right, let's move on to Joe Biden. Speaking of him, he's finally going to give his first press conference. They say, this is what they say. They say he's finally going to give his first press conference next week, which I think we were told last week it was going to be on Thursday. And before that, I don't know. I mean, all I know is that this is now a record in modern history, the first time that a president has gone over 100 days without a press conference, and they keep pushing the football further and further down. Is he going to do it? Is he ever? I feel like he has to do it eventually at some point. They're going to have to face this. They can't continue pushing the press off, especially because the press, as narcissistic as they are using this as you can't do this to us. We are the White House press corps.
We're breaking Watergate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have a problem with that, and they're going to continue to put pressure on the administration, even though the administration is not used to having any sort of pressure put on them. I feel like he's going to have to do this eventually, right?
He will have to. People eventually will hold him accountable, like he mentioned, for their own purposes. Like, I want to feel like a legitimate reporter. And so, I want to ask you what your favorite ice cream is, and damn it, you're going to answer. Or something like that. I miss Trump. Trump would just go out there, and they would have to keep him away from the press. Yeah. He would just go out there and spar with them just for his own amusement. He just...
Yeah, they told me I had to come talk to the fake news media. So here I am. What do you want?
you know my stance on this. I love not hearing from the president. I really do. I hate hearing from the president. I hate how the president's been turned into a king and a celebrity. So I don't like listening to the president. But this is a different case. Because now there is...
You want to make sure your president knows what day it is?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and there's more up here than a potato.
He knows he's the president.
Yeah, and he actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think there is a big portion of the country that's actually legitimately concerned, and it's a warranted concern that he can actually handle this. Because think about some of these press are going to be coming after him. He's easily rattled, as we saw on the campaign trail. Now, if you have 5 guys, bam, 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 asking him questions that he does not want to answer, things could go sideways.
Well,
for sure.
it's interesting though, because even Jen Psaki, they're getting the questions in advance. Where are all of the reports that I've been reading? So it's like, they could just be doing that for Joe Biden. You would think that would be very simple to field the questions in advance, get him what he needs, and just let him kind of play along. But then also he just gave a speech and couldn't remember his own defense secretary's name and the Pentagon. So you have to believe that was written on the paper, and he just, or the prompter, and he still couldn't cut it.
They better be careful with that. If they do something like that, they better be careful, because it's now getting to a point where people are looking for a conspiracy. And this is what happens. And this is why you need to do the press conference, because people are so curious. They're either making crap up or they're seeing things that may or may not be there. You might know where I'm going with this, but the microphone thing, did y'all see that?
It's wild.
It's weird looking.
It's wild.
I don't know. I really,
wild.
I don't know what to say about it. It looks odd, but when you have these suspicions, which they are making it worse, you're going to see whatever you want to see right there.
Right. That's a good point.
You're going to see them holding flowers instead of microphones eventually if this gets too bad.
They've done really weird stuff with that. I saw one video where, when he has his speech impediment, not his, declining, his speech impediment, where his mouth will sort of make that default South Park mouth where it's just kind of like he's trying to figure out what happened. You can slow it down and zoom in and watch. They have deep faked it into, his signature Joe Biden Scranton smile or whatever, but it's actually that puzzled face. And you can see the corner of his mouth raise in a way that's just not natural human movement. And so they've literally gone and edited that to cover up for him just being completely lost. As though he's not loading, next thought isn't queued up and processing. He's just smiling and laughing. He's just amused and having a good time.
No.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
You have to send me these.
I know, it's out there. Yeah, I will. It's the most illegitimate, and not in terms of the election, but in terms of just this guy is actually a puppet. Not that he's being controlled, but literally they have to marionette this guy because he just doesn't know where he is or what's going on.
It is very scary times. Well, we will be here to give you the press conference in all its glory. Whenever that happens, we're still waiting. We're still waiting, Joe, for you to come out and take questions. We've got a lot more to come, including Andrew Cuomo. There's more to that story when we come back after the break. First, we want to thank our sponsor, ExpressVPN. If you were a Trump supporter, be careful, because the left is coming for you. In case you haven't noticed, they are going to continue their campaign of censorship, repression, cancel culture until every last voice, every last one of us has been crushed. Now, of course, you know this already. This is not news to you, but they are backed by the media and some of the largest companies in the world. Big tech and the far left have formed this alliance to track, censor, and spy on you. So there has never been a more important time to make sure you are protecting your internet activity from bad actors. That is why you need ExpressVPN. Everything you search for, everything you click on can be tracked by big tech. They can match your activity to your true identity using your IP address. Now, when you use ExpressVPN, you can use it on your computer, you can use it on your phone. Your IP address is masked by a secure VPN server. It makes it much harder for websites to identify you. They encrypt your network data to protect your sensitive information from being compromised. You can use it on 5 devices simultaneously, so your whole family can stay safe and private with a single subscription. It is very easy. It does not cause any of your devices to lag. It is the #1 rated by CNET and Wired. You've got to go over to expressvpn.com/Y. You will get 3 months for free. If you go to expressvpn.com/Y, that is expressvpn.com/Y. Back in a minute. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo the news for him just keeps getting worse, and I personally am loving every minute of it. He was reportedly involved in the writing of a letter that his inner circle passed around to former staffers aimed at tarnishing Lindsey Boylan's credibility after, of course, she was the accuser, one of the accusers, of sexual harassment and repeated unwanted advances. Now, apparently the letter suggested that her accusations were premeditated and politically motivated. It reportedly revealed personnel complaints filed against her and attempted to link her to supporters of course, Donald Trump, because that's what you do when you want to discredit someone in the leftist movement. That's what we saw Gavin Newsom do. I think we may have that later. I'm not sure, but Gavin Newsom goes on and is like, "Oh, the only people trying to recall me are those QAnon people and Trump supporters. Those MAGA people are trying to recall me."
All 2 million.
Yeah,
they're all QAnon.
Okay, guys, that's the best way to red pill California is to continue calling them QAnon when they just don't like you. So they're passing around this letter, Cuomo's team, and the letter said, weaponizing a claim of sexual harassment for personal political gain or to achieve notoriety cannot be tolerated. False claims demean the veracity of credible claims, which is, I mean, if this is true, if what she said was true, what a slap in the face to real sexual assault victims everywhere, for someone like Andrew Cuomo to be saying false claims demean the veracity of credible claims. Like, I don't think if you're Andrew Cuomo, you want to be in the position where you're the one who is mansplaining that to your staffers. But would it surprise you at all to hear the report that Cuomo is, of course, involved in this?
Andrew, no, never.
He seems like such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Not mafioso at all.
No, upstanding character. I mean, I'm a big fan. All around. So, yeah,
Really?
For sure. I think it's funny how the Me Too movement has just completely like come back to bite. It's like they've raised this like monster of just like, innocence until proven guilty is just like thrown out the window, and then like the fire gets too big and it starts eating them. They're like, wait a minute, no, not me.
They're like, well, hold on. What about due process? We need an investigation. Oh, okay. It's interesting how you guys take that stance. Now, specifically Andrew Cuomo, who has gone on record, especially when they were talking about the whole Kavanaugh debacle, and he's like, believe all women. Women need to be believed. Women need to be heard. We need an independent investigation. How quickly he changes his mind on
And
that.
he maintains the virtue signals. So in that particular case, it's like we need to believe all women. And then in this case, when he's getting, the light shine on him, he's like, well, we need to do that, but we really need to believe the women who are credible, because to do otherwise the veracity is just like, he's still like trying to maintain this sort of moral high ground regardless of the circumstances.
Oh, God, moral high ground. That is something Andrew Cuomo knows nothing about.
I wouldn't, neither would any queer politician, pretty much. And I think that's pretty much my point. Of course, I believe that he would probably be involved with something like this. And the thing is that, and again, this is why we need to get away from the morality of both sides of the aisle. They all do this crap. Mm-hmm. I think, I won't say all of them, but a huge amount of elected politicians, they're just as slimy as the government is. If you didn't know, I'm libertarian, so I hate the government. But most of them are narcissists. Most of them are morally bankrupt. Cuomo is just, I don't know, a better mascot for most of the morally bankrupt politicians out there. I would not be surprised at all. And the most ridiculous thing is, and again, I hate doing the hypocrisy line, is just how they're responding now versus when they were riding that train during the Trump administration, as if this was like a byproduct of the Trump administration or something like that, which I kind of felt like that's what they were trying to say, really. I went over to Alyssa Milano's Twitter page. I don't think she's even commented on it.
She hasn't.
She tweets a lot, so I was scrolling through really quick to see what she said.
She doesn't. I don't think she's employed right now, so she does.
She's irrelevant. The only time Alyssa Milano has ever been relevant is when she was the cheerleader in the Damn It music video for Blink-182. You remember that?
Wow, poor Alyssa. Shots fired.
I saw that when I was watching The Simpsons one night. I think Blink-182.
They did a cameo. Yeah, I'm a huge Blink fan.
No, but I think my favorite part of the hypocrisy, though, is that they have already set the standard that even if he were to say, well, it wasn't sexual assault, like maybe I made an off-color joke or whatever, in their world, he cannot ask anyone out. He can't ask interns out. He can't say anything to staffers, to anyone, because of the power dynamic. That's what they say. Oh, but it's the power dynamic. You knew that you were powerful over them, and you did it on purpose because you knew the power that you held. That's their standard that they've held.
Yeah.
So in that case, he's guilty on everything.
Right.
If they're going by their own standard.
It's a good point. And I'm curious what the heck was the final line that crossed when these women, and I do believe were allowed to unleash and start coming out.
You have to believe it's the Attorney General, right, in New York.
Maybe.
I think
possibly.
She has I keep reading reports that she has political aspirations. And of course, she is more radical left than Cuomo. So this really, I think, is a case of the left eating their own. But I think she's eyeing his job and she wants him out.
Yeah.
And this is a way to get, it wasn't all of the deaths that he caused at the nursing homes.
No. That's what's so infuriating.
Yeah.
The majority of the coverage is on these sexual harassment claims.
Right.
And again,
because the media already screwed up on that. They can't come back and admit that they failed to cover it. So now they've got to find something else, I think.
Oh my gosh, man. it gets tiring talking about the media and how they've handled, right versus left issues. But it is so much on display right now. I mean, what was the last thing with that? Was it the Georgia call? The Washington Post was talking about. And then every single media outlet afterwards was just saying, oh yeah, we verified that. Yeah. Oh yeah, we checked our sources. Well, in all actuality, they were probably just checking one source. The one that first brought it. And now it was bullcrap. Yep. Complete bullcrap. And they're not really owning up to it too much besides like a little retraction. Or not even a retraction. A correction.
Yeah, they did not retract it.
And when are you going to go back? I mean, the damage has been done on that. When are you going to go back to the article and look to see if there's any corrections on one of these major stories? You're not going to do it.
No.
Same thing on Russia. Everything. They were wrong on all of that. They're the ones that will sit there and say disinformation is the biggest and fake news is the biggest issue in the country. They'll all say that.
Yeah.
When they're the worst at it in every single thing.
Yeah, I think we call that gaslighting. All right, we've got more to come. Back in a minute. All right, we were talking about Gavin Newsom earlier. Here's the clip of Gavin Newsom. Of course, they've gotten over 2 million signatures to recall him. They only needed 1.5 now. They've got to go through the signatures because, of course, Gavin Newsom is going to make sure if there is a way to get any of these signatures thrown out, he will. But here is what he has to say about all of the signatures of people who want to recall him in the state of California. Watch.
You have people that are part of the lead coalition that started this petition that are avid Proud Boy members. They're part of the 3 Percenters, the right-wing militia group. They are supporters of QAnon conspiracy theorists, white supremacist groups. That's not just that's factual. And so at the end of the day, that's the origins of this. And you combine that with Newt Gingrich and Mike Huckabee and Devin Nunes and now the RNC nationalizing this recall, time and money, you're going to get something on the ballot.
Well, what do you think of the 2 million or so Californians who have signed it, who signed this petition? I'm not talking about the leaders that you just went after. Certainly all 2 million Californians who signed this aren't all Trumpsters.
Wow. So, John, Gavin Newsom, is he trying to red pill all of these people?
I'm offended personally. I think that him calling into question the legitimacy of those signatures is a threat to democracy.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a really great
It is.
point. Jason.
He's so ridiculous. I have family members that are not right-leaning. They're left-leaning over in California. Half my family's over there from my wife's side. And even they were talking trash.
Yeah,
about
hating
Newsom.
Gavin Newsom has united California.
It really has. What he's doing is the prime example of what we said was the reason why they were keeping National Guard in Washington, D.C., where they were doing such a big push on all these domestic terror threats, trying to make it seem like the January 6th riot was all just like these radical right-wing groups, that all descended. There were families there, for crying out loud. They weren't all right-wing people. But they're trying to, and you saw him do this, he was trying to take a small group of people, QAnon, 3 Percenters, these militias, whatever, trying to say that it was them that was doing it, in conjunction with Mike Huckabee, people like that. So what he's trying to do is they're trying to say these are extremists. He lumps in everyone into the pot of right-wing extremists. And so everyone's guilty. Everyone's guilty just because these people exist. That's what they're going to continue to do to us. It really is. I think the DNI just released a domestic extremist report. And it's crazy. I mean, they talk about how there's an elevated threat. At the very end of the report, they talk about the different kinds of domestic extremists. They go all through them, right wing, pretty much left wing. They don't call it that. Even animal activists, environmental activists, stuff like that. But their entire report in the first half, and it's only 4 pages, is all just about. You can tell they're talking about right wing extremists. So, I mean, the more this goes through, and they're going to be their tactic. All of us are just guilty, not even by association because we don't associate with them, but just because certain groups of people like QAnon call themselves right-wing,
right?
And most of them aren't even right-wing, like the neo-Nazi groups, and was it Richard Spencer or whatever? They're not right-wing.
Yeah, he was a Joe Biden supporter this election.
They believe in National Socialism. They're left-wing. There's nothing right-wing about them.
Yeah.
But they're going to group and lump all of us into that pot. It's just so ridiculous.
Speaking of California, so finally, Disneyland, Universal Studios, the theme parks in California are able to reopen as early as April, but they have to take steps to make sure that you can't scream on the rides. I'm not making this up. They have to take steps to ensure that screaming on the rides does not lead to the spread of COVID-19. So they said you have to limit activities like singing and shouting, face covering usage, and or modifications to seat loading patterns will be required. Of course, they are only able to open under 15% capacity and in-state visitors only. No indoor dining. And don't freaking scream because you're going to kill grandma with your screaming, John.
I agree with that completely. As someone who makes a living in politics, I have no principles. I just adapt to whatever's immediately convenient to my worldview. And if you're screaming on a roller coaster, you should be in jail. Like you're ruining.
No.
You're ruining.
How are you supposed to ride a roller coaster and not scream?
It's not that deep. Like if you're screaming on a roller coaster, you're just acting. You're like, look at me. No one screams on roller coasters like authentically. And if you do, you shouldn't be on a roller coaster.
Wow. I feel very, very offended right now.
You need to, I'm not going to say that.
I feel seen. Like I said, John, it was great to have you on the program.
My last thought will be, if you're screaming on roller coasters, you perhaps need to go somewhere to get re-educated on how to properly ride roller coasters.
Jason.
I like how but it was more than just screaming, though. It was not singing.
Yes.
So basically, you can go to these theme parks.
Don't have fun.
Don't have fun.
No,
But yes, they're open, but
also,
if you have fun.
Don't laugh. Okay, if you smile, you're
no.
opening your mouth,
You
which
do
could
not.
lead to your germs spreading.
That's a
so
good
don't
point.
do that either.
Yep.
I mean, you never can be too sure.
No.
Outside, out freaking side, in California, where it's like always 70 degrees.
Yeah, that's part of the strategy for like making us as a country so deunified and so like absolutely isolated is like you can't even see people's faces anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I just moved from Michigan, and so I was like completely like, oh yes sir, I'll put my mask on. And I went and I had breakfast and I like saw the hostess's face and I was like, this is so cool. I can like see another person now. I felt like an actual human being and not just like a
cog in the machine.
Yeah, some cog, some sheep.
Yeah. It really is. It's amazing. We have, Dave Rubin came to visit us not too long ago, and of course he's in California, and they're like, God, it's so weird to see people's faces. I mean, we've kind of been like living like this the whole time, so I think we maybe take it for granted what a crazy time people are having with us.
It feels crazy. I was in DC back in December. And so they're at the heart of, COVID as a political weapon, you know, and then we're just ramping on it all the time. And they were so freaking scared. And you could tell, like here, you go to the stockyards. You been to the stockyards yet?
Yeah.
So you go to stockyards and you can't even tell there was ever a pandemic. Most people are not wearing masks. They're walking around, high-fiving. They're drinking beers out in the street. It's awesome.
Yeah. It was so nice. Yeah. It was like this totally like free society.
Yeah,
and
it
just
feels
great.
normal. You feel normal. But in DC, it's like there's hardly anybody out. If there is and you walk past them, they literally cross the street.
That is so weird.
I was going into an elevator. I was in an elevator, and me and the guy that I was with, we didn't have masks on. No, we did not have masks on in the elevator. This guy, of course, had his mask on. The door opened. He went, looked, did one of these things, and didn't even say he hit the next one. He just took 2 steps back, and did that.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't because he was pissed politically. He was frightened. He was scared.
Yeah.
And that's everywhere.
Thanks, mainstream media. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
All right.
we were at the stockyards like a week ago, and some guy just came up to me, and I was just like, he was like, hey man, I was like, oh sorry, I'll put my mask on just instinctively, and he was like, no, just how you doing? You having a good time? I was like, we have community in Texas? This is so new.
That's the most Texas thing I've ever heard in my life. We'll be back in a second. I love it. Well, good. You got a good walk.
Yeah.
All right, don't forget to go to wherever you get your audio podcasts. Search for The News and Why It Matters. Subscribe, rate, and review. Make sure to give us 5 stars because we deserve no less than 5 stars. I mean, actually, we deserve more, but I think 5 stars is the max that you can give us, unfortunately. You may also see your review read live on air. We've got one today from Jim Bob 768. Jim Bob, are you in Texas, Jim Bob? That sounds like a Texas name right there. Do love the show. Been a subscriber to BlazeTV since the day after it started. Have never missed your show, but decided to get the podcast. Then I can rate it. Some serious news and fun, just the package that is needed. Might need more cowbell. That's cute.
That's a good point. You can always use more cowbell. And everything.
Oh man.
Also, don't forget that you can find John here if you're still a fan of his. I don't know. I'm not anymore. He dogged me too many times on my own show.
Too emotional, these women.
Tell them where they can find you on YouTube.
YouTube.com/John Doyle. You can go to heckoffcomedy.com. That's my website. You could find me on Twitter, but then I got banned because I told people to call their congressman. That's how that happened.
Oh, wow. You can't be doing that these days.
No, totally irresponsible. Or Instagram at johndoyle.jpg.